Ethan starts investing at 20, Ryan starts at 30, Oliver starts at 40. All three decide to invest $300 every month. Same monthly contribution, same hypothetical investment, same hypothetical 7% average annual return. So why could their results end up being so different? Because investing isn't just about how much money you put in, it is also about how long each dollar gets to work. Ethan's first $300 goes into his investment account when he is 20. That $300 can potentially grow. But here's the part people often miss. If it grows to $330, the next year's potential growth isn't only based on Ethan's original $300. The money that has already grown remains invested too. So now the investment has more money working for him. Then Ethan adds another $300. That money gets its own opportunity to grow. Then another $300, then another. His account isn't simply a pile of contributions anymore. It becomes contributions plus accumulated growth, with the potential for that growth to generate more growth. Ryan starts the exact same process at 30. His first $300 can compound too. But Ethan's first $300 has already had 10 additional years to potentially grow before Ryan even makes his first investment. Oliver starts at 40. Again, his money can still grow. But his first $300 has 20 fewer years than Ethan's first $300. And that's the unusual thing about compounding. The first dollars you invest can become some of the most valuable dollars in the entire portfolio because they have the longest time horizon. Imagine Ethan puts in $300 at 20 and never adds another dollar to that particular investment. Under the hypothetical 7% return, that single $300 could grow to roughly $1,160 by age 40. He didn't contribute another cent to that specific $300. Time did the rest. Now imagine Oliver puts $300 into the same hypothetical investment at 40. By 60, that $300 could grow to roughly $1,160 too. The return assumption is the same. The difference is that Ethan's money reached that potential value 20 years earlier. And those extra years matter because Ethan can then leave the money invested for even longer. That's the part that makes compound growth so powerful. It isn't a straight line. It can accelerate because the growth itself remains invested. Of course, a real investment will not reliably produce 7% every year. Markets fluctuate, losses happen, and returns are never guaranteed. But the mathematical principle doesn't change. The longer money has to potentially compound, the more opportunity it has to grow. So Ethan's advantage isn't that he has a better stock. It isn't that he contributes more. It is something much simpler. He gave his first dollars more time. By age 30, Ethan has been investing for 10 years. Ryan has just started. Oliver is still waiting until 40. Now let's look at what actually happens inside Ethan's account. Suppose Ethan has contributed $36,000 over those first 10 years. That $36,000 is his money. But if his investments have grown, the account could now be worth more than $36,000. And this is where people often misunderstand compound growth. They think it means, I put money in and it earns interest. That's only the beginning. The more important part is that previous growth remains invested. Imagine Ethan's account gains $2,000. He doesn't withdraw that $2,000. It stays invested. And if the investments grow again, that future growth can happen on the original contributions and on the previous gains. So instead of repeatedly starting from zero, each year's growth gets added to the amount that can potentially grow in the future. Ryan eventually experiences the same thing, but Ethan has a larger head start because his earlier contributions have already had time to accumulate growth. Now let's make the comparison more dramatic. Imagine that Ethan reaches 40 and decides he doesn't want to contribute any more money. Ryan starts investing $300 every month at 30 and continues until 60. Ethan has stopped contributing completely at 40. Who has the better chance of ending up with more money at 60? It might surprise you, Ethan can still potentially finish ahead. Why? Because the money he already accumulated at 20 and 30 has another 20 years to potentially compound. This is one of the strangest things about long-term investing. You can eventually reach a point where time is doing more work than your new contributions. That doesn't mean you should stop investing after 10 or 20 years. It simply demonstrates how powerful a long time horizon can be, and it explains why delaying your start, because you think you need to invest a huge amount, can be misleading. Ethan didn't need to begin with $5,000. He started with $300 a month. His advantage came from allowing those contributions to stay invested. Ryan may eventually contribute more aggressively because he started later. Oliver may need to contribute more because he has even less time, but neither can recreate the exact years that Ethan already gave his money. That's why the phrase, "I'll start when I have more money," can be dangerous. You might eventually have more money, but you will also have less time. And when it comes to compound growth, those two things are not interchangeable. You can increase a contribution later. You cannot go back and give an investment another 10 years. Now imagine Ethan reaches 30 and looks at his investment account. He has been putting in $300 every month for 10 years. Ryan is just getting started. Oliver is still 10 years away from where Ethan started, but here's where the comparison gets interesting. Ethan doesn't suddenly need to become a high-income investor. He can keep contributing the same $300 a month. Why? Because his earlier contributions are already inside the account, potentially generating growth. Ryan, meanwhile, is trying to catch up by contributing the same $300. Oliver eventually realizes that if he wants to reach the same target in a shorter period, he may need to contribute considerably more each month. And this creates one of the biggest advantages of starting early. Starting early can reduce how much you need to rely on the large contributions later. Imagine two people want to build a $500,000 portfolio. Ethan starts at 20. Oliver starts at 40. They cannot simply use the same contribution schedule and expect the same result. Ethan has decades for his contributions and potential investment growth to work together. Oliver has only half as much time, so Oliver may need to put significantly more money into the account each month to pursue the same target. This is why waiting until you're financially comfortable can create a strange problem. You might eventually earn more, but the amount you need to contribute to make up for lost time can also become larger. Ethan's early contributions are doing something incredibly useful. They are buying him time, and time is something Ryan and Oliver cannot purchase later with a bigger paycheck. But there's another reason Ethan's position is different. Because he started young, he can potentially adjust his strategy as his life changes. At 20, he might only be able to invest $300. At 25, perhaps his income increases and he can invest $400. At 30, maybe he can invest $500. He doesn't need to begin with the amount he hopes to invest decades from now. He can start with what is realistic today and increase it as his circumstances improve. Ryan can do exactly the same thing. Oliver can too. The mistake would be thinking, if I can't invest a lot, there's no point starting. Imagine Ethan says, $300 isn't enough, so I'll wait until I can invest $1,000. He might eventually reach $1,000, but if he waits 10 years to do it, he has lost 10 years of potential compounding. A smaller amount invested earlier can have more time to grow than a larger amount invested later. That doesn't mean small contributions are guaranteed to beat large ones. The return matters, the investment matters, and real markets are unpredictable. But when you're investing for decades, time changes the mathematics. And that's the part Ethan understands that Ryan and Oliver initially overlook. They're all focused on the question, how much can I invest? Ethan asks a different question. How long can I leave it invested? Because sometimes the most valuable thing you can add to an investment isn't another $100. It's another 10 years. Now put Ethan, Ryan, and Oliver side by side. Ethan started at 20. Ryan started at 30. Oliver started at 40. They all invested $300 a month. The difference wasn't a secret stock. It wasn't a special investment strategy. It wasn't even a huge difference in their monthly contributions. It was the number of years their money had available to compound. And that leads to the biggest lesson of the entire comparison. Like if you're young and you can realistically start investing, you don't necessarily need to wait until you have thousands of dollars. A smaller amount invested consistently can give you something incredibly valuable, a longer runway. Ethan's $300 contributions might not look impressive when he's 20, but he isn't trying to become wealthy next month. He's giving those dollars decades to potentially grow. Ryan starts 10 years later, so he has less time. That doesn't mean he should give up. It means he should recognize that his timeline is different and build a plan around it. Oliver starts at 40. He has even less time, so his priorities may be different again. He might need to consider how much he can contribute, when he'll need the money, and how much investment risk is appropriate for his goals. And this is where the story becomes more important than the exact numbers. The hypothetical 7% return we used was simply an illustration. Real investment returns are unpredictable. There are no guaranteed results, and the value of investments can fall as well as rise. So don't take the example and think, if I invest $300, I am guaranteed to have this exact amount later. That's not how investing works. The real takeaway is the relationship between time, contributions, and compounding. You can increase your contribution later. You can change your investment strategy as your goals change. You can earn more money in the future, but you cannot go back and give today's investment an extra 10 years. That's why Ethan's biggest advantage isn't his $300. It's the fact that his first $300 has more time to potentially become something much larger. So if you're deciding whether to start investing, don't ask yourself, can I afford to invest a huge amount? Ask, what amount can I realistically invest without putting my essential finances at risk, and how long can I leave it invested? That question is much more useful, because investing early isn't about getting rich quickly. It's about giving your money the longest reasonable opportunity to potentially compound. Ethan started at 20. Ryan started at 30. Oliver started at 40. They can't change those starting points, but if there's one thing their story makes clear, it's this. You don't need to start with a fortune. You need to give the money you can invest enough time to potentially grow